This is a lecture from Open Tuition. For the free lecture notes that go with this podcast, please visit opentuition.com.
This lecture goes through question 1 from the December 2012 P3 paper. The question is called, is called the EA group. And if you haven't got it to hand, you should really go and download it. Watching this lecture without pre-reading this question, without being able to go through it as I go through it, is going to waste this resource. So pause the video now, download the question, and when that's all ready, then restart. We strongly recommend that you spend your 15-minute reading time looking at question 1. You'll have seen that this is over 2 pages long, and it therefore contains a lot of information, and you'll have to read this several times to make sure you really understand what's happening. It's very difficult in the middle of an exam, if you've done some of the shorter questions first, to go back to that large question and give it enough time, give yourself enough time reading and thinking. Before you read it, you should always go to the requirements at the end of the question, because this will alert you about the kind of content of the question, what it's going to be asking for, and then when you read through the question, you read through it with a bit of pre-knowledge really. So let's look at the requirement A here. Analyze the performance of each of the 4 companies. So that's our first part of this requirement, because even part A is often a multiple part requirement. So we have to analyze the performance of each of the 4 companies described in the scenario. And then we have to assess each company's potential future contribution to the EA group portfolio of businesses. So it's assess the performance and assess each company's potential future contribution to the EA group portfolio of companies. And we see here a word which should be ringing some bells with you. It's the word portfolio. And the chances are that we might be looking at Boston Consulting Group matrix. There's a small chance, but a very small chance, that we'll have to be looking at the parental development portfolio. But I think you'll be directed there very, very much to the point. I think when you see the word portfolio, think of Boston Consulting Group, because that's made to look at several different products or companies and really see how they kind of, to some extent, interact together. Part B says time, scope, capability, readiness for change are 4 contextual features that affect strategic change. And here the second bell should be ringing with you. This phrase contextual feature or context of change is something which comes up in Balogun and Hope Haley and their theory of change management. We had the contextual features, and then we had the design choices. And then finally discuss the principles. So discuss the principles together with the advantages and disadvantages of benchmarking in the context of Steeltown information technology. So it's a little bit of a theoretical work first. What are the principles of benchmarking, and then what are their advantages and disadvantages, all in the context of Steeltown information technology. So what we'll do is we'll read through the question word for word, really, absolutely slowly, and think about the sort of things that we would be almost planning to say. I won't be ending up writing a full answer or anything of that sort, but planning to say in relation to requirement A, analysing the performance and then assess each company's potential future contribution to the EA portfolio, and we're expecting maybe some Boston Consulting Group analysis, the use of that particular framework. So let's read through, bearing in mind we have to analyse the performance and also say something about if we can, about how the component of the group fits into the kind of portfolio matrix, probably a PCG. So here we have EA Group has a portfolio of companies currently specialising in alternative energy supplies and associated products and services. It grew out of Power for the Sun, one of the pioneers of solar heating, which still remains an autonomous company in the group. The profits generated by POTS funded the initial development of the group, which now comprises 12 companies. Only 4 of these companies are considered in the scenario. And you should always wonder why you've been given a little bit of information. And there's little kind of beginning to wonder here a little bit. Will there be anything significant in being told that there are 12 companies? Is that going to make a difference at any point? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But whenever you get a bit of detail, I would, at least be suspicious to start with, to see if it possibly could be used. Power of the Sun. POTS was one of the first companies to realise the potential of solar-powered energy solutions, and it pioneered the use of the technology, particularly in government and city council public sector buildings. From 1995 to 2005, its net profit regularly exceeded 15%. Recent results for the company are shown in Figure 1. The approximate size of the overall market is also given, sector turnover. So here we have 4 kind of recent results, and certainly we'll be able to, I think, say something about the performance of this company. Although POTS was the main source of profits which drove the expansion of the group, many employees within POTS are now feel that it is now relatively neglected. Consumer surveys suggest that the brand is not well recognised, and respondents who did recognise it saw as a tired and traditional brand. So there's maybe going to be something in here now. Although it had been the main source of the group, now it is not well recognised, and they feel it's a bit neglected. Many of its most gifted managers have been promoted into the EA Group headquarters or other companies within the group. It is expected that their expertise gained with POTS would help improve the performance of acquired companies. However, despite the loss of valuable resources, POTS still has recognised expertise and many valuable contacts and contracts in the public sector. These contracts, particularly with city councils, have allowed the company to retain a significant presence in the solar-powered energy market at a time when competitors have withdrawn from or scaled back in their operations. So that's quite significant itself. We are one of the main players. We are making a success of it, and for some reason many perhaps of the weaker companies have withdrawn. So let's have a look at the figures here. Let's look first of all at the sector turnover. It goes from 355, 356, 357, 357. So essentially in there is certainly about nil growth. Okay. If we look at our sales revenue as a kind of percentage of what's going on within that, well, it started at 88.8, and we had 355. We started with a market share there of about 25%. And at the end, we're 107.1 divided by 357. Oh, we're up at about 30%. Our gross profit percentage, well, it's obviously in here, it's about 25% again, our gross profit percentage. and in 2011, 357, I beg pardon, 22.5 divided by 107, it's about 21%. And we see the net profit, well, it's fallen from a high point there. It's maybe some suggestions that it might be being rescued again in 2011. And all really the first bit of requirement A wants you to do is to comment on performance. So I would say something like that the overall sector for solar panels is pretty static. However, this company of ours has managed to grow its market share from 25% to 30%. And unfortunately, but maybe as a result of competition, maybe this is how it's managed to grow its market share, its gross profit percentage has fallen from 25% to 21%. And that's really all you, I think, need to do in that. This is clearly, compared to the 15% we got historically, it is clearly the net profits we're getting there from 9.8 down to 7.5 are a little disappointing. But nevertheless, getting a net profit in there of 7.5 million is, it's certainly worthwhile. So I think in many ways this company's done quite well. It has got bigger market share. Its gross profit percentage has fallen, but it looks as though it's both its gross profit and net profit may be on the increase again, possibly as a result of some of the competitors leaving the market. And so we're not looking for anything more sophisticated than that. Secondly, what about the portfolio aspect here? And I would say that if you have about a 25 or a 30% market share, then you have a large market share in the market. The market is not growing, essentially 355 up to 357 is more or less zero growth, so it's a very low market growth rate. So if you have a high market share and a low market growth rate, then this would be, do you remember, this is likely to be therefore a cash cow. And we might be able to even tie this into some of the other words which are here. What happens at cash cow? It's perceived as a bit of an old company, a bit of an old product. It's kind of assumed we can kind of let it be on its own. We don't have to maybe advertise it very much. We don't have to maybe, bring out new editions of the product and so on there. We're trying to hope it's going to thrive on neglect almost. But we don't want to spend very much on it because we want to, this is the time we're going to be generating the profits. And that looks maybe as though it's happened. It says POTS had been the main source of profits. They are saying now it seems to be a little bit neglected. That's the feeling of the employees there. But nevertheless, it's and there's a bit of resentment, but nevertheless it's kind of holding its own. What about its, because the requirement said in there, it says that's the potential future contribution there. Well, once you have a low market growth rate, probably you're expecting the next stage to be decline, but there's no particular sign of that. It's been pretty static. It's certainly not declining yet there. This market could go on for years, really, being quite profitable. What we must be careful of, however, is not to increase the neglect. If we were to entirely stop advertising and bringing out slightly updated products, then you can actually precipitate a decline in the market. So although by and large cash cows, you conserve your cash, reap the profits at this stage, we have to be careful not to jeopardize the future, and we would maybe ought to be thinking, well, we need to promoted maybe a little bit just to make sure that this still very profitable company stays profitable, stays up there with this very excellent 30% market share. It's obviously a very dominant company in the market. So let's look at the second company in the group, Nich. The EA Group acquired Nich in 2005. Nich was founded by Kevin to provide high quality glass products. These were used in the original solar panels developed by Potts. That's got original solar panels in there. I wonder if it's still being used, but anyway. And a close relationship was built up between Kevin and the managing director of Potts, Ken. Ken later became the CEO of the EA Group. The glass panels continued to be used by Potts in its products. Okay, in 2005, Kevin Nich informed Ken that Nich was in danger of going into administration. As a result, the EA Group acquired the company to help secure the supply of a vital component to the Potts product. So that's kind of maybe quite interesting here. We acquired a company here to help secure the supply of a vital component here. So we were almost kind of, if I put in here maybe the idea of it being forced. Before we heard this kind of news of the problem about liquidity or whatever was causing the problems, it looks as though EA Group had no thoughts about taking over Nich. Since that time, financial and management resources have been invested in Nich in an attempt to improve market share and profitability. Some of the best managers have been transferred to the group. So we have invested there, we have put in financial and management resources, we have the management there, the best managers have been transferred to the company. Data for Nich is shown in figure 2. Again, the estimated size of the total market is shown as sector turnover. So let's see what's kind of going on with these figures here. If we look at the sector turnover, it's very slowly declining, but it's about kind of zero growth, isn't it? Zero to very, very, very marginally negative. Our turnover has increased, but what's the market share within that? So the first market share was 6.3 divided by 90. So it's 7%. And we end up here with 7.94 divided by 88.2. We're coming at about 9%. So there's been a little bit of an improvement in market share, but I would suggest that if you're down near a market share of 7, 8, 9%, that would generally be regarded as quite a small market share. So presumably putting in better managers and maybe more financial resources has led to the increase in turnover and the improvement in market share, but it hasn't been earth-shattering. The profits are okay, they're increasing, but of course they are very small. I mean, the net profit there of 0.72, and we look up here and it was 7, so we're about a tenth of the size. So I don't think whatever's going to happen, this is going to be a very important component of the group, probably. What about the gross profit percentage? So the gross profit percentage in here, 1.07 divided by 6.3. So we've got about 17% gross profit percentage there. And in here we have got 1.45 divided by 7.94. So it's about 18%. So there's been a little bit of a fall. I know, so that's a little bit of a rise in the gross profit percentage over 4 years, but not much in it. Okay. we have to think about this. Is quite interesting. We have to think of the future of Nich glass in the company's portfolio, and the I think what we would probably say is if you have a more or less a zero market growth and you have a very small market share, we're probably dealing here with what BCG would call a dog product. And the dog product is probably one you should divest. It is not really going anywhere. It's small, very small profits coming out of it, despite pushing in good management and so on there. We haven't made a big increase in the market share. It seems to be difficult to fire it up really. Generally speaking, I would get rid of a dog. That would be the normal kind of advice. But I think we just have to think a little bit here. We require a company to help secure the supply of the vital component. And I think a lot about the future of Nich glass will depend on whether or not it's going to be easy to find alternative suppliers for the particular components we need. Now, our market share is around 9%, which implies there are many other suppliers of glass into this market, so it would suggest there isn't much of a problem. It does depend rather, however, on how specialised this glass is. I mean, why did they take it over 5 years ago? Because if you go back kind of 3 or 4 years to 2008, I mean, the market share then was only 7%, and we felt impelled to take it over then. So we just have to think, generally speaking, you get rid of it, it's not performing very well, it's pathetically small anyway, and the only reason it might stop us getting rid of it is if it was producing glass which was fairly unique, and in fact that the sector here was not maybe quite measuring properly the sector we're really interested in, which could be a very specialist glass sector. And this is one of the potential problems of BCG. What is the market? What is the sector? So you've got a huge glass market, if you like, glass in windows and house and offices and so on. You've got glass in cars, and there is glass in glasses to drink out of and so on. So if you look at glass like that, it's terribly wide. But if you say, well, maybe if I'm looking at a very specialist glass for solar panels, then the sector is going to be very small. And you can get misinterpretations of BCG by misunderstanding your sector. Now the third company in the group, ENCOS, in 2007 can recognise that other alternative energy sources other than solar power were becoming increasingly important. Council managers were increasingly requesting a combination of power sources with control systems that could be used to switch power sources to reflect the most economic combination of sources. As a result of this, the EA Group acquired ENCOS, a company with innovative control systems, that's quite nice, innovative control systems, for monitoring power use and matching it to the most suitable and cheapest source of supply. ENCOS was an acknowledged technical leader. So it's innovative and a technical leader, but had little marketing expertise and few contracts. Now, it's interesting. This is absolutely perfectly set up for the other kind of portfolio management matrix, which is the Johnson Scholes Whittington, and looking at parental development. Remember, there were three forms of, in a way, portfolio management, I suppose. You had portfolio management, where you just gave your subsidiaries a financial target, and then it was kind of hands-off. Then there were synergy managers, where you tried to look for cost savings because of the combination or maybe cross-selling. And then there was parental development, where it's a bit like a parent helping a child. The child needs help to realise its full potential. And we can go on and maybe even say that what we've got here is a heartland industry. So a heartland industry is one where the subsidiary needs help and the holding company can give help. And can give the right sort of help because it's in a way the same sector or knows something about what's going on. So here we have ENCOS. We're told here it is a really good technical idea, but it lacks marketing expertise and it has very few contracts in the public sector, all of which the EA group is perfectly set up to give help with. So by taking it over and supplying this marketing help, we can get it to exploit fully this technical expertise which it has, and indeed where it's a technical leader. So I would expect really this is going to go pretty well. So we go down here. ENCOS's control systems, sophisticated mathematical algorithms, which are now used in many private sector applications. It is an excellent record of profitable delivery, with each contract carefully estimated and a detailed analysis of gross profit reported per contract. Financial data is shown below. So let's see what that looks like. It looks a very good company, just before we get to the figures. But yes, we've gone up there in 4 years. We have a nice sector turnover. It's over 10%. We can work that out, obviously we want to. So it's 11 divided by 70 in in 3 groups, if you like. It's about 5% per annum. Let's look at their. So it's quite a reasonably strongly growing sector. Look at there as well. It's gone up 21 to from 13.3. In that, so 13.3, that would give us 6.7, 8.7 divided by 13.3, so that was increased, gosh, 65%. Really rocketed away, so it has. Our gross profit is kind of doubled in the 4 years. Our net profit has also about doubled in the 4 years. So this is just an excellent company. It has performed really well indeed. What will we do to it on a BCG portfolio? Well, what's our market share? So we have our turnover compared to the other one, so 13.3 divided by 70. The old market share was about 19%. Current market share, well, we can see it's about a quarter, isn't it? Now we could probably call this a star product. Strictly speaking, there is only one star product ever, or one star company, because it has to be the largest of the company with the largest market share. But I think that's being a bit precious about BCG. A 25% market share is pretty good. 25% growing, really good profits of a sector which itself is growing. I wouldn't really have much problem saying this is probably a star product. And we want to hang on to it. This is going to presumably keep increasing our profits. We are expanding. We have expanded from public sector to private sector. It's an acknowledged leader. It has these mathematical algorithms which can be kind of kept secret. We could talk about competences within the organisation. We could even see, that there could be other synergies. We put all your on your solar panels, and then we can give you this control system as well as maybe part of the deal. So that's really very, very good indeed. Steeltown Information Technology. Steeltown City Council, second largest city council in the country. 2 years ago, responding to government initiatives to outsource non-core activities, it was decided to outsource the IT technology department to the private sector. The department developed and implemented bespoke in-house systems to support the departments of the council. Trade unions resisted this, and employees were against it. Many of the employees had worked for the council for many years, kind of wanted to stay there. However, this opposition hardened the council's resolve, and they forced through the plan, citing restrictive working practices as a major problem. The council invited private sector companies to tender for the work. So there's some we have a part of the question, of course, in change management here. Of course, we have certainly here considerable resistance. I'm just marking that down, and maybe I don't think it's going to be useful in part A, but later. The EA group were keen to broaden their technological services to the public sector and saw this as an opportunity to acquire an organisation that could spearhead its growth. Ken said we must avoid being too narrow in focus. We started in solar energy before broadening out into other sources and services. We now wish to broaden again into the IT services in general, and the acquisition of Steeltown City Council's Information and Technology Department is perfect. We see clear technological synergies between ENCOS, who are technical leaders in control software design and development. Well, I think he's actually saying here, broadening out here, there's a degree of diversification going on. Ken has claimed that he saw linkages. We have got these mathematical algorithms for controlling and switching energy and so on here. But here they are going to be taking over the running of a council's IT system, which is used for housing, education and social services. So it'd be like wages and salaries, keeping track of maintenance done on housing and so on. And I think I might just wonder about, in this diversification, maybe how much synergy there will be. Steeltown Information Technology, as the company is now called, has entered into a 10-year exclusive contract with the City Council to supply IT services. The contract price is based on current cost plus inflation plus 5% gross profit margin. So a 5% gross profit margin, I would say that was pretty small. That might be something suitable for a net profit margin, but as a gross profit margin, 5% is very small indeed. The contract will be renegotiated after 5 years, when it is expected that savings made by the company can be passed on to the council. Well, a lot is resting here, maybe in the future here. Let's say this might be tough. If we don't make the savings, yet the council expects savings, there might be some quite difficult negotiations to go on. The IT director and his deputy both vigorously opposed privatisation. They've now been transferred to the new company. They took voluntary redundancy from the council. Other managers have not been transferred to the new company. They took voluntary redundancy. Other managers are philosophical, glad the uncertainty is over, and they said, well, let's try it out. Very few new systems have been developed in the past 2 years, whilst the future of the department was being discussed. There's now a backlog of applications to develop more systems. Users of these departments usually find it very difficult to specify system requirements in advance, and there have been very few successfully implemented IT solutions. Maybe some more problems. Although the Steeltown City Council contract is on a cost plus basis, managers who have always been budget and service orientated will be expected to profitably deliver solutions to other potential customers in the public sector. As part of preparing for strategic change, the EA Group wishes to benchmark performance, and they have provided the following information. So, if we get back to kind of, I think that's most of what's there. Yep. So if we get back to what Part A was asking for the performance here, and also the position of the subsidiary in the future strategy of the group. This one doesn't really tell us the performance. We can't get particularly market share, because I think what's happening is the government has just started this business of trying to outsource and so on there. The market is probably going to be growing as more and more councils go down the outsourcing route. So we might be able to say that there's a potential high growth rate, because the government will want this to spread amongst other councils, and we might have a high market share. We've got the second largest council in the country. It doesn't quite tell us what the other councils might have done yet, but it's maybe a potential bit of a star again. High market growth rate, high market share is a kind of star area. However, my problems, I think, would be here in the diversification, which of itself, learning a new set of tricks is dangerous, but also the small profit which has been earned here. I don't see any fantastic synergy between what they're doing at the minute, which is solar panels, and then they have this sophisticated switching algorithms, but all to do with energy in there, and then they have Nich glass, which is a bit of a dog product, and I don't see any synergy between that and running council payrolls and so on there. So I think it's a bit of a misfit, actually. Yeah, it might work out all right, but I think it's still, the jury's very much still out on it.